All right, let's take a look at how we multiply and divide rational expressions. Again, these are just fractions, so let's take a look at how we multiply in fractions. So if I just said 2/3 times 4/5. Remember, to multiply fractions, all we do is multiply straight across the top, so that would give me 8/15. However, remember when let's just try, let's see if I said 2/3 times 7/4. All right, remember though, when we're multiplying, we could multiply straight across the top, which would give us what? 14/12, and then we'd have to reduce, or we could reduce first. And the way you reduce is you can reduce any factors on the top with any factors on the bottom. So we could reduce the 2 and the 3, if we could, the 7 and the 4, if we could, the 2 and the 4, which will actually reduce, or the 3 and the 7. See, kind of the idea here is, if you think about it like this, if we just went ahead and multiplied straight across the top but didn't do it, isn't that really just one fraction? Which is exactly like what we had just with the last lecture when we were looking at reducing rational expressions. Now notice the 2 and the 4 will reduce, which gives us 7/6, which is what would reduce from 14/12. All right, so we're gonna do basically the same exact thing. So let's go ahead and get our steps up here. Step 1, I'm just gonna say factor everything. Step 2, cancel any common factors from, let's just say, the top and the bottom, the numerator and denominator. From the top and the bottom. And then of course, in this step, we're not really going to multiply it out, but then we're just going to multiply straight across. Okay, so let's just try a few examples. Again, our directions would be simplify or perform the indicated operation and simplify. So let's start out with, I don't know, let's say we got x squared minus 16. Let's say 4x minus 20 times x squared plus, I don't know, 9x plus 20 all over x squared plus 8x plus 16. All right, got a lot going on here. All right, so the way you do this is always classify what you're doing first. Here we are multiplying fractions. Now we know we multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. You could do that. You could start distributing. You'd end up with a giant mess, and then you're gonna have to try to factor that and reduce. So you always wanna try to factor and reduce first. So I'm gonna factor all 4 pieces. The top here is just the difference of squares. That factors to x plus 4, x minus 4. This denominator here, if we factor out a 4, we're left with x minus 5. Up here, this factors to x plus 4, x plus 5. And this denominator factors to x plus 4 times x plus 4. All right, so we got a lot of different factors here. So the easiest way to generally do this is I generally start in the top left here and see if you can reduce with anything on the bottom. So here I have an x plus 4. Do I have any x plus 4s on the bottom? Yeah, I got one right there, so that'll reduce with that. Here I have an x minus 4. I don't see any x minus 4s on the bottom. Here's another x plus 4. I can cancel with that x plus 4. Excuse me, and I got an x plus 5, and I don't see any x plus 5s on the bottom. All right, so that's all we can reduce. So now we need to multiply. Now don't start distributing. Just multiply across the top and multiply across the bottoms. So we have an x plus 4 and x plus 5. Now remember, each one of those is a 1, so 1 times anything is just itself. And on the bottom, all I have is the 4 times the x minus 5. Now, since nothing else will reduce, leave it just like that. Don't distribute it out. So notice, this isn't much more difficult than just reducing rational expression, except we got a little bit more factoring to do. All right, let's try another one. Let's say I gave you x squared plus x minus 12, x squared minus 9 times, who knows, let's do how about x squared, let's do this one again, since we just did it, this will make it a little bit easier. All right, so do me a favor. Here we're multiplying fractions, so we want to reduce everything first. So take a second, see if you can factor all 4 pieces and see if you can reduce. Hit pause and go. All right, if you're back, let's see what we ended up with. So on the top, again, we can factor that using our AC method in the shortcut. That'll factor to x minus 3, x plus 4. All over the bottom's the difference of squares. That's x plus 3, x minus 3. Difference of squares gives us x plus 5, x minus 5. And we just factored this one a second ago. This is the AC method. That's x plus 4, x plus 5. All right, so let's start, move across the top and see if we can reduce anything. Here we have an x minus 3 on the top, and I do have one of those on the bottom. I have an x plus 4 on the top. I have an x plus 4 on the bottom. And an x plus 5 on the top and an x plus 5 on the bottom. All right, so remember, each one of those is a 1, so the only thing we have on top is 1 times 1 times 1 times x minus 5. That's all I have, just the x minus 5. X plus 3 times 1 times 1 times 1, it would be just x plus 3. All right, so if you notice, the biggest difficulty that you're going to have for this section is just being able to factor everything. All right, so that would be multiplying rational expressions. Let's take a look at dividing them. Now here's some very, very good news for this. Let's take a look at how we divide fractions. So if I said, what's 2/3 divided by, I don't know, 4/5? Well, we don't actually divide fractions. Remember, what do? We multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So we just take that second fraction, flip it over, and change it to multiplication. Now it's a multiplication problem. We do the exact same thing that we just did. So we could multiply straight across the top, which would give us 10/12, but we can reduce first to give us 5/6, which of course is what 10/12 would reduce to. So we really don't have any steps for this except for what? It's just multiply by the reciprocal. Just multiply by the reciprocal. All right, I'm gonna keep forgot the word, the letter L and simplify. So, leave our direction simplify up there, or again, it might be perform the indicated operation in simplify. Let's just try a few of these. Let's say I have, let's do x squared minus 4 divided by 20x squared all over x squared plus 4x plus 4. Okay, so here we have a division problem. As soon as you see that you're dividing rational expressions, immediately, before you do anything, you want to go ahead and change this into multiplication. Times, and just flip over this second fraction, x squared plus 4x plus 4, all over 20x squared. Okay, so now what do? We factor each piece and see if we can reduce. So again, let's let you take a shot at this. Pause the video again, see if you can factor everything and reduce. All right, you back? All right, so let's factor each piece. On the top, we can factor out a 5, and I'm left with x minus 2. In this denominator, that's the difference of squares. That's x plus 2, x minus 2. Times over here, we can do the AC method. Two things that multiply to give me 4, but add up to be 4 would be 2 and 2. And well, this is already factored. There's really nothing we can do with that. All right, let's see if we can reduce anything here. We're starting on the top. Let's see. This pen works any better. The 5 and the 20 can reduce. 5 goes into 5 once, goes into 24 times. I have an x minus 2 over an x minus 2. I see I got an x plus 2 and an x plus 2, and well, that's about it. So let's see what we have on the top. 1 times 1 times 1 times x plus 2, all over 1 times 4 times x squared, or just 4x squared. All right. let me give you one to try. This one's gonna be a little bit harder, at least a little bit harder on factoring. So let's say I gave you, let's do x cubed minus 8 all over x squared minus 4 divided by, let's do x squared plus 2x plus 4 all over x plus 2. Okay, so again, we're dividing. So the first thing you want to do is change that into multiplication. Then see if you can factor everything and reduce. So again, hit pause and reduce. Go, simplify. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem. The first thing we want to do is write this as multiplication. So times, that's x plus 2, x squared plus 2x plus 4. All right, again, I'm going to go through this kind of quick because hopefully you remember how to factor. This is the difference of cubes. That factors to x minus 2, x squared plus 2x plus 4. Below it is the difference of squares, factors to x plus 2, x minus 2. Now over here, we can't really do anything with x plus 2, so let's leave it alone. You can put that in parentheses if you like. And x squared plus 2x plus 4, we would do our AC method and we could do the shortcut. We're looking for two things that multiply to give me 4 but add up to be 2. Well, nothing fits, so that's it. All right, so let's see if we can reduce. Here's an x minus 2, can reduce with that. Look here, we got this whole thing here. All that can reduce with all that. X plus 2, and I got another one on the bottom that reduces. All right, so everything canceled. Now the biggest common mistake that we make here, and this is more of a language mistake, is students go, oh look, everything canceled, so I have nothing left, so that is 0. You know, that's wrong, right? Because think about it, remember, each time we reduce these, we get all these 1s, right? That's what these are. So on the top, we'd have 1 times 1 times 1 over 1 times 1 times 1, which is just 1. All right, so if everything reduces, remember, you gotta have something there. It doesn't go away. When you're dividing, you get those 1s. All right, so that's multiplying, dividing rational expressions. As you see, the hardest part is going to be the factoring.